Shuckalacka kapow. How's it going, old schoolers? You're kicking it old school with Russell J.S., and I am your host, Russell J.S. If you remember, in the last few weeks, I have gone over my top 10 favorite movies of decades, like the 2000s, the 90s, and the 80s. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with my top 10 favorite movies from the 1970s. Now, there were some that didn't make it in this countdown. Because there's a lot of stuff I loved in the 70s that I've seen quite a few times, but not as much as I've seen these bad Oscars, like Clockwork Orange, let's see, what else? Chinatown, Five Easy Pieces, Halloween. But these are the top 10. Now, the thing is, some of these movies I own either on Blu-ray or DVD, and some of them, because I already have them in like one of those gift pack sets, those box sets, I had to borrow from the library. You'll know just by looking at them which ones I have in a gift pack set that's borrowed from the library, and of course Blu-ray. And remember, if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit a like, subscribe, leave comments down in the box below, ring that bell for notifications for future videos, and kick it old school with me. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your pets, anybody that's into kicking it old school. Now, these are movies that I've seen from the 70s quite a lot. And it's because I love actors or whatever reason it was. But without further ado, let's check these bad Oscars out, shall we? Coming in at number 10 from 1979. You see, in the 1970s, thanks to movies like Animal House, they were having the comedy, the whole thing with young comedy and what youth was getting involved with. They were trying to remake Animal House in their own way. You had Animal House, and you would have it, in years to come, like Animal House on the golf course, Animal House in the army, Animal House become the police. You'll know what I'm referencing. But this one particular movie, it was Bill Murray's first movie ever. It was produced by Ivan Reitman and directed by Harold Ramis or one of the other two. Filmed in Canada. This is Animal House Goes to Camp. Look no further than Meatballs. About a bunch of rowdy camp counselors who have children they're charged with children for the summer at a summer camp. And they're wanting to all get frisky while all the campers are asleep. And this was, like I said, this was Bill Murray's first movie, and he leads all these, rompy young people to have fun for the summer, if you know what I mean. If you ever get a chance, pick this one up. It is a comedy classic. And remember, it's Bill Murray's first movie, and you know how much of a Bill Murray fan I am. And ranking at number 9, which was the first of 3 movies that John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd starred together. And you know how much I talk about Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. 1941. This is Steven Spielberg, also from 1979. This was Steven Spielberg's first attempt at comedy. After he did Duel, Jaws, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and he was very successful. He wanted to try his stick in comedy. And this leads not just John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, but it leads an all-star cast with Ned Beatty, Lorraine Gary. Almost half the cast from Jaws. Murray Hamilton, who played that corrupt mayor in Jaws, is in this. So is Robert Stack. You might remember him as the host of Unsolved Mysteries. And he plays General Stilwell, who is an actual real-life general during World War II. And it's zany, it's comedic, and it was written and produced by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. Now, you got to think of the trio, Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, and Bob Gale. What did those 3 guys, what did they bring us some years down the road? The Back to the Future trilogy. Steven Spielberg was an executive producer. Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis wrote the movie, and Robert Zemeckis directed it. And later on, Zemeckis would go on to direct such Academy Award-winning blockbusters as Forrest Gump. But this movie, it didn't make a whole lot of noise. I mean, John Belushi's character, the fighter pilot Wild Bill Kelso, was supposed to be Bluto from Animal House in an aviator's uniform. And, all chaos breaks loose. Even Spielberg parodies some of his previous two movies. He parodies Duel. In the beginning, he parodies Jaws, which he has the same exact girl who was the first victim of a shark attack in the first Jaws movie. And, it's even fun to watch at Christmas because it takes place days after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. But here's one that you have to pick up. It's very funny, it's zany, it's wacky, and has an all-star cast. Coming in at number 8, I have to put this movie up on here, 1973's Led Zeppelin, The Song Remains the Same. Now, this bad Oscar is probably one of the greatest rock movies to come out at the time since the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night. I mean, it showcases concert footage at Madison Square Garden of the band, which was filmed in 3 days. And also they have fantasy sequences where band manager and road managers were managers Peter Grant and Richard Cole. They fancy themselves as Prohibition-era gangsters. They fantasize that. John Bonham fantasizes himself as a race car driver. Jimmy Page fantasizes about, being a wanderer out in the woods, coming up to a magical wizard who turns out to be him as an elderly man. Robert Plant as a knight in the medieval times, fighting to rescue a damsel in distress. And John Paul Jones is some kind of vigilante in Victorian England who also comes home to a family. But, they shot 3 nights of Madison Square Garden. You would think it was all shot in one night. And it played in theaters very well. I mean, if you're a Led Zeppelin fan, this is the perfect movie for you to have. Led Zeppelin, The Song Remains the Same, at number 8. Number 7, this comedic duo became rich, successful overnight, selling records of them doing sketches about 2 stoner hippies. One who is Mexican-American, the other Canadian. And as a matter of fact, they put out a record album back in that same time called The Big Bamboo, where you opened it, and it's a rare find to find it unopened, because when you opened it, it came with a giant rolling paper. And their first movie, one of the funniest comedies of the 1970s, 1978's Cheech and Chong Up in Smoke. Funny thing in this movie, they're going all around trying to score marijuana, but they can't score it, and they have a job where they got to smuggle a van and they're trying to look for weed, and they're smuggling a van from Mexico back into California. And what little they know is the whole entire van they're driving is made completely out of weed, and that's the way they bring weed. That's the way they bring marijuana into the States in this movie. And it also stars Stacy Keach as Sergeant Stedetko. And it's a fun, comedic stoner romp, and they're also getting into a battle of the bands. It's hilarious. This is one you have to pick up, Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke. And it was the first movie for both of them, even though in years to come, they would part their separate ways and do their own thing. So number 7, Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke. Number 6, this one right here, that I have on Blu-ray, was a TV movie that come out in 1978. And I know what you're thinking, oh my God. I mean, how can you put that on there? It was never released theatrically. Well, let me tell you something. It was released overseas theatrically. It was produced by Hanna-Barbera, and some of you older than me will know the rock band Kiss. And what it is, it's a science fiction musical camp fest by Hanna-Barbera, known as Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. Now, yes, overseas it was released financially, and it was titled there, Kiss in Attack of the Phantoms, filmed almost entirely at Magic Mountain Amusement Park, which is now Magic Mountain Six Flags. If you remember, if you remember your movie history, Magic Mountain actually posed as being Wally World in National Lampoon's Vacation. So you'll probably recognize the amusement park. You'll see the spots like, oh yeah, that's where Chevy Chase had John Candy held at BB gun point. You know, you'll recognize all the things from National Lampoon's Vacation. And it's kind of like, because it's Hanna-Barbera Productions, it's like Scooby-Doo without the Scooby Gang, except Kiss are the ones being detectives. You may recognize Anthony Zerbe as Devereaux. If you remember, I think he was in, I don't know, if you're a Trekkie, correct me on this, okay? Because I know some of you Trekkies, you know your Star Trek very well. Anthony Zerbe, I think he was either in Starship Enterprise or he was in one of the early Star Trek movies. I think he was in Wrath of Khan. Leave comments down the box below and tell me who he was in the Star Trek universe. He plays a mad scientist trying to turn human beings into androids. And the only ones that could stop him is the band Kiss. So there we go, number 6. Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park. Moving on to number 5. Some people will say that this is the beginning of the superhero movie. I wouldn't really say so. I mean, in 1978, when this movie came out to the theater, it went big at the box office. And, you know, I wouldn't say it was the start of making live action superhero movies just yet. I mean, by 1989, Batman had come out with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. And after that, they were attempting to make live action comic book based movies. Like later on, they would try, I mean, they did a really good job with the original Ninja Turtles movie from 1990. And they tried with Captain America, and it bombed, and Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher, and it didn't do too well. But it wasn't really, I mean, this I can't say is, I mean, it had a small part. It was, you know, what if we can bring all the superheroes from Marvel and DC to the big screen in live action? Because technology with the special effects still had ways to go. You know, CGI wouldn't come out until somewhere in the next 2 decades. And George Lucas's special effects technology, you know, it was great for Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Return of the Jedi, and E.T., and, you know, Ghostbusters. But it still had a long way to go before they could bring certain superheroes alive on the big screen. But this one, 1978's Superman the movie. Talk about an all-star cast. Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, Gene Hackman, Ned Beatty. And, you know, this was actually the first of live-action comic book superheroes on the big screen. I will admit that. But yeah, this is a classic right here. I mean, Christopher Reeve even worked out in the gym to pump up muscles just for the part. And you know what? In my opinion, still to this day, rest in peace, Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve is still, to me, always going to be the best Superman ever. I mean, Henry Cavill and Dean Cain, they were good too. And that other guy from Superman Returns, that guy was too puny. But this is the classic. If you've never seen this, stream it, find it on Blu-ray, find it on DVD, whatever you got to do. If you've never seen this movie, this is the definitive ultimate superhero movie. This is probably one of the reasons why we have the multiverses of Marvel and DC. Some people say, oh no, you know, it was just ahead of its time, and you know, it wasn't really responsible. It wasn't until X-Men came out in 2000. But you know what? This was the start, because the last time anybody really saw superheroes in live action was Batman, the Batman TV show in the 60s, and in the 70s, Wonder Woman, played by Linda Carter, who looked like Wonder Woman. Lou Ferrigno playing the Hulk, and he looked just like him. And that other guy who played Spider-Man for a while. But get your hands on this. You'll think differently of Henry Cavill or Dean Cain or that other guy. Hold on, let me do this. There. Yeah, that's what I think of Superman Returns. But, right here, number 5, Superman the movie. Now, number 4 on the list, this is what I like to call, in my opinion, and some people disagree with me on it. This was Fast and Furious before there was Fast and Furious. I mean, people will say to me, oh, no, it's got a love story. It's nothing like the Fast and the Furious. Well, here's how I compare it to the Fast and the Furious. You got a trucker, him and his other trucker buddy, and a girl. Well, not until the middle of the movie do they run into the girl, but what happens is they're tasked on a bet, on an $80,000 bet by a rich guy and his son, that they can't go from Atlanta, Georgia to Texarkana, Texas, bring back an entire truckload of Coors beer in the span of 28 hours. You know the movie I'm talking about. Burt Reynolds, Sally Field, Jackie Gleason, and Jerry Reed in a black Trans Am. A black Trans Am named Trigger. What am I talking about? If you haven't seen this, you will definitely think that this is the Fast and Furious of the 70s, Smokey and the Bandit. And it was this movie, I think I was about 3 or 4 years old. It was on HBO. I mean, this movie came out before I was born, but it was on HBO. And my older cousins were babysitting me, and they were watching it. And it was then that I became obsessed with Trans Ams. And this movie was selling Trans Ams like hotcakes before the creators of Knight Rider even thought of Knight Rider. Now, Knight Rider did sell Trans Ams, but, Burt Reynolds used to promote it. He used to wear the jacket and everything when he would be interviewed. But if you want to see some good high-octane action with a lot of laughs, and you've never seen this, put it on your to-watch list. Again, stream it, buy it on DVD or Blu-ray, whatever you have to do. And watch this. You're going to love it. It also spawned 2 sequels. And, I became obsessed with Trans Ams at, 3 or 4 years old. I had, I don't know how many toy replicas of Trans Ams that look just like the one in this movie. But if you love movies like the Fast and Furious franchise or Gone in 60 Seconds, you're definitely going to love this. It's a classic. Check it out. Now, number 3 on our list, I've already mentioned this movie. This is a couple, the last 3 are movies that I had already mentioned. This movie in particular made people scared to go in the ocean at the beach. It also made it also became the first ever blockbuster movie. Best-selling novel. Stars Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, Lorraine Gary, Robert Shaw, and Murray Hamilton. 1975's Jaws, directed by Steven Spielberg. This is when Steven Spielberg became a success with blockbusters. He invented the blockbuster movie. I don't care what anybody else said. And forget Sharknado, forget all those goofy looking, shark movies that you see on the Sci-Fi Channel and all that stupid crap. Look no further than this movie. You want to talk about a timeless classic. It's now 50 years old. I wasn't even born yet when this movie came out. It was the most terrifying movie of its time. If you've never seen it, check it out. It's simply the best. It spawned 3 sequels, a couple video game adaptations, theme park attractions at Universal Studios Hollywood and Florida, and just all kinds of scenes referenced and quoted for years to come. All right, now we get to number 2 on our list. Now, this movie I already talked about, how it was the start of, what the younger people of the generation want in their comedy and in their pop culture. It brought college humor to an ultimate high. It made John Belushi a bigger star overnight. I mean, in 1978 when it came out, John Belushi in one shot had the #1 movie, the #1 record album, and the #1 TV show all at once at a young age, all before he was 30. This one was, I want to say, it was directed by John Landis, written by Doug Kenny, Harold Ramis, and Chris Miller, produced by Ivan Reitman, takes place entirely in Eugene, Oregon, about a house of fraternity brothers that all they want to do is party and have a good time, and their rivals being the college dean and the next door fraternity. Look no further than 1978's National Lampoon's Animal House. I mean, this helped bring toga parties to the college campuses and beer keggers and rowdiness, people just wanting to have fun. And like I said, it helped this guy right here, John Belushi, become a huge, huge star. But sadly, his life was shortly lived. But he did have, in his short life, in his short 33 years of life, he did have the world by the tail with humor. This is Animal House starring John Belushi. And also, it is, you would find also a young Kevin Bacon in this movie as well, along with Karen Allen, who you remember as Marion Ravenwood in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Tim Matheson. I mean, and John Vernon, who is the ultimate bad guy, playing Dean Wormer. It is a classic comedy with relatable characters and unforgettable loved characters. Food fights, guitar bashing, toga parties. Look no further than this bad Oscar, National Lampoon's Animal House from 1978. Now, we come to the my #1 pick of all-time favorite movies from the 70s. This was the second biggest blockbuster when it came out. It revolutionized the summer blockbuster movies. It was so popular, it had even its fanfare orchestra had a disco theme, t-shirts. The writer and creator of the movie, the writer and director of the movie, he signed a deal with the movie company that if it didn't do well, he would still obtain the rights to it. And it became a huge success to where he became a multimillionaire overnight with posters, t-shirts, toys, cereal. All kinds of merchandise racket, video games, theme park rides at Disney. 2 sequels in a trilogy, prequel trilogy and a sequel trilogy when Disney obtained the rights, and some standalone shows and standalone movies. You cannot get away. Since 1977, you have not been able to get away with the catchphrase, "May the Force be with you." 1977's epic classic, Star Wars. Now, I didn't say Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. I said Star Wars because even though this movie came out the year before I was born, it was just simply Star Wars, and then came The Empire Strikes Back, and then came Return of the Jedi. But this movie revolutionized forever the way movies should be made, with special effects, music, sets, the whole kit and caboodle. Anybody who's anybody has seen this movie. And this movie, generations to come, people will see this movie again and again and again. And to me, it's the #1. It's the most #1 blockbuster movie of its time. It was ahead of its time like Jaws, ahead of its time like Superman. But this, to me, is the ultimate, definitive, classic blockbuster extravaganza. Now, that's it for my top 10 favorite movies of the 70s. And this is all the time I have. Remember, leave your comments in the box down below. And, please tell me that Anthony Zerbe, if you're a Trekkie, Give me the Anthony Zerbe trivia on the Star Trek universe. And remember, like, subscribe, leave comments in the box down below, ring the bell for notifications. Also, tell your friends, family, neighbors, your pets, your teachers, whatever have you about this channel. Let's help build this channel up. Let's get the algorithms going. And also, I want to wish you, as always, keep it real, keep it chill, keep it fresh. Keep watching old school movies. Keep listening to old school music. Watch old school TV shows. Play some old school gaming consoles or arcade games. And, get you enough of love, get you enough of peace, get you enough of tranquility, get you enough of less drama, no drama, get you enough of less chaos, no chaos. And remember, Godspeed. May the force be with you always. And shaka-laka kapow.